Greetings, Patrick here, 8 Questions With. And yes, we are running a tad bit late, doing the Good Samaritan thing for a friend. Don't mind doing that. But it caused me to be a little late for our guest. Luckily for me, it's my good friend, Michael Caissie. And we're going to be talking about Michael's brand new movie, No Tears in Hell, as well as another show that he wrote for. Now, did you direct some of these episodes too of Second Chances?
Yeah. I was actually fortunate to come in for seasons 2 and 3 and write and direct those 20 episodes. They're half-hour episodes, so it's 20 half-hour episodes.
I definitely. Hey, Steve, how are you? Steve and Lucas boy, how are you? Glad you're here. Hey, Jerry, how are you? And he says hello to you, Michael. Yeah, so I caught a few episodes and I caught a familiar face in Second Chances. I saw Gabriella Westwood. So that was really cool. I was like, okay, this is neat.
You'll see another one from No Tears. Actually, there's two other No Tears actors, if you will. Audrey Neal comes in and has a really cool part, and who's the other one? Jake Marlowe, who plays. Gosh, I'm so bad with character names. This is terrible. Jake is he's the one that's trying to find basically Alex's character and goes to the police in No Tears. So he plays a young uniform officer in Second Chances. I can't think of what his
okay. And Simon is here, and I'm going to take this one if you don't mind. Let me handle this one. So Simon said, look, I did see Hunter's Moon. I must say it wasn't my cup of tea. Huge Thomas Jane fan, but kind of let down by this picture. Okay, Simon, now I'm going to go ahead and address this because you might not have known this. But if you go back on my page and you'll type in Michael's name, Michael Caissie, go to the very first interview and it'll explain exactly some of the things that happened on Hunter's Moon that were beyond Michael's control. Sometimes that happens to a filmmaker. They just don't have all the resources, and so they have to do with what they can. Now, I too had said that too. In my review, I'm going to stand up and take my lump. I too said that, about Hunter's Moon until I found the facts out. Once I did, it made the film a lot better. And now, honestly, Michael will tell you that I am on his ass like every other week. I'm asking for, like, have you done anything with the family yet? I mean, there's anything new coming down?
I think you did that. I think you did that week. I think you said was it last week or the week before that you had mentioned, you had asked me about that. So
yes. And studio meddling can totally hurt a picture. And that's really what happened here. It was just a lot of fingers in the pie. And so it was really difficult for Michael. But looking back at it now, that movie has started to become a cult status movie. A lot of people are talking about it now. When I hear people talk about werewolf movies, I'm hearing Hunter's Moon come back at me. And I'm doing my part because I'm also doing it because I like I said, I just love the story. I love the concept. And man, I just, you see movies with big budgets and they're just like shit. And you go like, how come a good film director, how come we can't give them that same kind of money to flesh out a movie like Hunter's Moon that deserves it because it's a fresh original story. I've never heard of this. I never heard of the story like Hunter's Moon until I saw it, and I just think it's amazing. And I love the story, and I want to go back. I really do.
yeah.
Yes, but look at the money that was behind Primitive War. Look at the money and the cast wise, Simon. It's a whole different animal. Let's see. Yep. So that's what I'm with you. Now, No Tears in Hell. No, nobody is going to be disappointed in that. If you call yourself a horror fan, if you call, like myself and everybody in the chat, pretty much, if you're a horror fan, you like horror, No Tears in Hell is literally your dinner, your cup of tea. Definitely, it's definitely up your alley. It is a banger of a movie, Michael.
Appreciate
I was amazed. I was like, man, this is, and so I'm going to tell this too because this is, this is exactly how it went. And I told this to both you and the PR person. So I've interviewed over 600 people, 700 actually now. I have never been shy about talking to anybody about anything, anytime.
it.
But your actor Luke Baines, who's in No Tears in Hell, yeah, I had my ass like looking for the exit. That guy is so damn good.
He
It
is, yeah.
creeped the hell out of me. It was just I can't think of a more awesome directing job than this because he's overpowering, and that's a good thing because he's a really it's strong. It's a strong performance. Um, yeah,
He's also,
I was
he's
impressed.
also a really sweet human being too, which makes the performance that much more interesting. And there's actually he has I won't mention her by name, but it's like 2 in the morning where she's at now. But she's a huge Luke fan, and she was able to see the film, and she was like live messaging me as she was watching it, and she was just like mortified because I'm assuming she's like been a fan of Luke's from Shadowhunters and a few other things that he's done, but this is certainly something he's done horror before, of course, but like this is something completely different in terms of like how far he goes, and she's like, oh my god, thank god I know him as a person. This is still really hard to watch and so intense and stuff, and yeah, on set like it's just amazing because in between takes and at dinners and just at the hotel and just talking to him on the phone and had a Zoom. He had actually watched Hunter's Moon before he signed on to the movie, so he watched he watched Hunter's Moon, and we talked. I think we zoomed. No, I think we just talked on the phone. So, but just a really intelligent, kind, sweet human being. He's big into charitable causes, particularly around children. So he's just this great human being, this phenomenal actor that I was just really appreciative to have him be a part of this project because, yeah, he just delivers and just an incredible performance. And that's just so interesting to see how he outside when the cameras are off. It's like a completely different person.
Yeah, isn't it always something like that? When you hear an actor, you hear about actor, and you wonder about them. There was I saw one actor do this movie, and I was just honest. I was just so like I was so turned off. I was just so turned off. And I knew the director of the film, and I went to him. Man, I was sitting there going, like, man, I don't know, because I wanted to review his film, but he had this actor in this film, and I was saying honestly, man, I said he did this movie called Chaos,
Mm,
and man, I don't know if I could talk to that guy. He goes, he says, Michael, he says, this guy is the nicest guy. He really is. I worked with him now, and it's like, and it seems to be always that way. It's like you see somebody on stage on the film, and you just look at that, and it's hard sometimes to separate the actor from the human being because they're so
absolutely.
good at it. Um, it's hard sometimes, to separate, to realize that these are good people, and they're just doing a job. And if they get you to feel that way, they've done their job. And that's
Yeah,
how it was with Luke. With me,
yeah,
when I watched it, I'm going like, that's his job is to scare the hell out of people. Well, he
yeah.
got one here, um, and I was like, man. And then again, I love the cast too. So I want to go back a little bit because I want to know. Well, I mean, how did the film come about? Where did you hear about this story?
Yeah, so there's an executive producer named Michael Tadros Jr. who I had met. Gosh, this must have been about 5 years ago at this point, through Arnold Rifkin, who helped get Hunter's Moon off the ground, who was also responsible for Hangman. So was, you know, Arnold's done a lot of great things for me career-wise. So I met Michael Tadros Jr. and we kept trying to figure out something to do together. And I think it was right around Christmas, maybe 4.5 years ago. I said to him, I called him up. I said, Michael, let's come on, man, let's work on something. And he goes, you know what? I think I finally found something that we can do. He's like, I got this partner. His name's Alex. He said, I want you two to connect. Give him a call. He has this really dark serial killer concept that he wants us to do. So I call him, talk to this guy, Alex, great guy, and he says, "Have you heard of the Siberian Ripper?" And I'm like, "No." And I've always been really fascinated by serial killers, so I was like surprised I had heard nothing about this guy. So he's like, "I want to do a movie like this. Here's the Wikipedia. Here's some links. Do some research." And I got kind of carte blanche from those guys. Like they just said, "Go write the script." And I said, "Well, can I direct too?" And they said, "Let's start with the script." And so I wrote the script, and I remember, and I've been very open with this, I had a really hard time, Patrick, writing the script. I mean, like just starting at the script, forget about the movie itself. I did all the research, and as I'm writing it, at that point I started to have young kids, and it's a lot different, at least for me, because I've always been into horror, but now I've noticed since I've had kids that some of the stuff is just harder for me to stomach, even though it pulls in different heartstrings. And so my wife at the time was saying, like, what's going on? Like, because I kept taking these breaks, and I kept like just kind of like I wasn't my normal self. And I said, God, I'm just having this really hard time writing this. This is really intense. I want to be true to the material. I want to kind of put my own fingerprints on it. And so I wrote the script. And then Michael and Alex were like, yeah, I think you should direct this if you're up to it. I said, I would love to direct this. So they actually, at that point, they said, we don't know where we're going to send. They didn't know where they wanted to do the bulk of production, but they were like, Alex had just come back from a trip from, I don't know if it was a cruise or something, but he had been to Whittier, Alaska. And so he was like, I think we should send a skeleton crew up to Whittier, Alaska, get some stuff. He started sending me these buildings. So in the movie, there's this really decrepit kind of, it almost looks like a dorm type building. So when you go to Whittier, Alaska, there's only about 250 people live in the entire town. They live in this one huge building that looks like the one that we used as the exterior of Alex's apartment, but there's two of them. There's the abandoned one that we shot the exteriors of. We couldn't actually go inside of it. It was so run down, and you just couldn't get into it. And then there's the building that looked identical to it, but had obviously been kept up. And that's where all of the population in Whittier basically lives. It's like this big kind of farm style thing. And I doing some research, I guess it was like a military kind of place. And so all of the rooms in the building, when you go in, it's actually where we stayed too. You go into each floor has all these, that's why I keep saying dorm, because it's like a 1-bedroom apartment. And they all, hundreds of them onto this building. So we went there, we shot, we kept going back and forth. I kept going back with Michael and Alex saying, like, am I filming the movie here? Am I filming the exteriors here? Like, what am I doing here? And they were like, just get as much exterior stuff, and then we'll figure out about the actual production. So thankfully, I took Gev, my DP, and a few small, I think there was like 4 of us that went out there for about 4 or 5 days, and we just shot the drone stuff, and we shot exterior stuff, we shot that building, all the stuff with the mom on the bridge, with the snow and throwing drones over.
Did Gwen actually go on outside? Did she walk?
No. So at that point, Gwen we hadn't even cast at that point. I think they kept sending me a couple of options, and I think while we were out there, they said, we want to go with this woman, Gwen Vanaman. And I said, okay, great. Send me all, like, her picture, give me something. So we had a great tour guide out there, and I said to her, would you mind putting like this coat on and this hood and walking out? And it was like blizzard condition. All this snowy stuff is like 99% accurate. That was actually there. It wasn't VFX. So like we were in like these blizzard conditions, and I said, I need you to like walk across this bridge. We went to like this butcher shop in town, and we bought all these bones, and we put them in this bag. And so luckily she has like the height as Gwen and everything like that. And so I'd never even met Gwen at this point. So we film her at a couple different angles. We film the bones getting thrown in, and it dawns on me, it's like the middle of the night, and it's like there's nobody anywhere. And I said to the tour guide, I'm like, are we safe out here holding these bones like in the middle of like the wilderness?
Right.
She goes, well, I'm like, oh God. To this day, I don't think she was joking. So I'm like kind of looking at the woods, and I'm going, okay, like, all right, let's get the shot and get the heck out of here. So we had shot, there's a shot, I don't know if you remember, Patrick, but there's like, I think it's a fox running across this ice. That's actually real too. We just happened to be flying the drone over, and my DP Gev was like, oh, something's running across the ice. So I'm like, follow it. So there's a point when you're going over the drone, you can see the fox kind of look up like, what the hell is this? Like following me. So we got that. But in the script, I knew when I was writing it, there's an Australian film called Snowtown, based on the Snowtown murder. I don't know if you've seen it, but phenomenal movie. And so I was like heavily influenced when I was writing this, as well as directing it, based off of that film. So in the script, all of these, like, there's shots of like wildlife, wolves like tearing carcasses apart, and birds flying and fish flopping and things like that. All of that was actually written into the script before we ever filmed. And obviously, I'm not going into the Alaska wilderness to try and find wolves tearing carcasses apart. So I had put in the script, and I had said to Michael Caissie Jr. and Alex, like, budget. Bernard is the producer on the project. Said budget for stock footage for these, because these shots are very important. I'm not gonna be able to get these live, so let's make sure. And I'd gone through as I was writing. I went online. I was finding these stock footage, and for people that don't know, not to insult any viewers, but stock footage is basically like someone else has filmed it. You can purchase the usage, full usage, and then you have the rights to actually put those in your film. You pay a certain amount.
Is that cheap to do? I mean, the stock footage has already been.
No, it depends. Like, if like, let's say you and I are just doing like a passion project, and it's only going to go on, let's say, YouTube, and we're not going to make any money off of it. The bare minimum it's like let's say $80 for one of those, right? Because we're not making any money, but we have to buy the full extent of each footage, because it's gonna release, and we're gonna make money off of it. And obviously, someone took their time and their skill to go take that shot, so it's all credited. It all gets put in there. So yeah, we filmed the 5 days. I knew the stock footage was there. The other body double used is our skeleton crew. Sorry, I think there was 5 of us. Our second assistant camera, who was also kind of a genie at the same time. His name was Andrew. He was tall. We'd cast Luke at that point. I said, well, how tall is Luke? Looking at the crew that I had with me, and I'm like, Andrew, you're about the same height as Luke. Can you put this hood on, this coat, and walk into the store? So the store where Audrey and Tatiana are, where Luke finds them. The exterior of that store was Alaska. The interior was Alabama, which I'll get into in a second. So I said to Andrew, put this hood on. I want you to go look at this window, stand there for a second, then turn and walk away. Then I want you to go look at the window. Then I want you to walk in. So we filmed all that. We filmed like exterior. And then we also filmed, there's a part where Jake, who plays Simon, is running away from the killer and slips and falls. So he's running towards that store. So I said to Gev, I'm like, I know it's icy here. You got to run with the camera, brother, and you got to run, and you got to do like a kind of like you're falling, and then we'll film the other side of that when we film. So
now, is this test footage, Michael, or is this you're actually before the movie officially starts filming? Are you filming this for the movie, or are you filming this to see how it would look?
No, we're filming. We went there. We filmed there. Luckily, it was one of the things where I don't know how. That's why I always give credit to Gev, the DP. Because collectively between he and I, we were like, what can we get while we're here, and not be on vacation, because it's such a beautiful. I mean, we did do a tour, and we went and got Alaskan snow crab, and not gonna lie, sure. On our dime, but that was not paid for. But it was like, if I'm gonna be in Alaska, I want to get snow crab. So we did all that, but it was just kind of like I had mapped out the shots, and I was like, what can we get here? Because I had no idea. I kind of assumed we were going to go back to Alaska to do the rest of filming, or somewhere that was snowy. And then months had gone by later, and Michael called me, and he's like, yeah, you're going to Alabama. And it was like in the middle of summer. And I'm like, what do you mean? To film what? And he goes, no seasonal. And I go, Mike, it takes place in the snow. And he goes, you'll figure it out. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So everything else outside of what I just described was in the middle of the summer in Alabama. And Sarah, who's our production designer, did a phenomenal job with her team. All of like inside of Luke's apartment, all that is a soundstage that she built out. And I had this is the first time I ever had the opportunity to do this. I was doing my shot list, and I was like saying like, this would be a really cool angle if I did this. So when I designed basically his apartment, I was like, Sarah, you can make it however you want. We'll talk about color palettes and stuff. But I was like, I need to be able to, if the table is here, I need to be able to rack focus from like Luke sitting here or mom sitting here to where the radiator is. So like make sure that door has this kind of angle. And so we kind of designed the schematics, if you will. And so she built around that. And also all of the inside of his apartment is a soundstage. The hallways leading up to the apartment was an abandoned school in Alabama. The homeless encampment was like right outside the soundstage. And so it's like 100 degrees in the middle of summer.
Oh my God.
And Luke's got this big coat on.
That was in Alabama.
Yeah, and like, so one note I got from Bernard, the producer, was like, "Why do your homeless guys have shorts on?" And I'm like, "Bernard, because we had a tight budget, and the homeless guys are my crew, and it's 100 degrees outside, so they're wearing shorts, and they were nice enough to be homeless people. So pretty much every non-speaking background person that you see that's homeless in the homeless camp is some crew member." From the Alabama team.
How did you get the colorization? Because the colorization looks like it is in Alaska. It's gray. It's overcast. It looked cold as hell.
So this is
how did you get that look?
Like movie magic, basically. So like the opening scene is Jake is kind of moving to go talk. Laurie is moving to go talk to Luke. And so anything that was, like you see that there's a lot of upward shots, so you get a lot of sky stuff, so you can't really see the dynamics. Some of where it was a little challenging and where this is kind of like pulling back the curtain, if you will. When Jake is kind of running away from the killer, again, this is the middle of summer, so we drove all around Dothan, Alabama, and they had this like downtown is this beautiful area, but it's like kind of abandoned in certain spots, and there's a railroad track and stuff like that. And I'm like, God, there's a lot of green here. Are we going to get kind of crucified for this? And I'm like, you know what? It just kind of is what it is. And we kind of separated the script at that point. Once I realized we were there, if you look at what we did with the stock footage, there's shots of like icicles dripping and then like the fish flopping and stuff. And I was kind of implying that kind of maybe spring had happened at that point. So we were allowed to get a little bit more green. And also story-wise, in the true story, they started to find bones and things like that as stuff started to thaw out. Sorry, hold on one second. Hey, stop. I have a cat that is like now deciding to use a scratching post. Stop doing it. So loud. I'm like,
so it's the writing room. They're coming up with new ideas.
They're just kind of they're like, oh, attention. But yeah, I needed the bones to kind of be found anyways as part of the story. So like there's a middle point where you see like the ice dripping and then like the water's kind of melting a little bit, and then that's when not to ruin it, but that's where the skeletons found the dog. So we kind of wrapped it around that way, and I just tried to make sure we don't have any green really showing prior to that moment, and that's how we were able to do that. And a lot of it was just interior stuff too. So at that point, we were, like I said, we had this really cool warehouse that Sarah and her team was able to really put together this inside of his house, his apartment, which is, you can't tell. I mean, I look at it now and I go, God, it looks like an actual apartment. No, and then we shot inside of a store in Alabama. So again, like the outside of that store is Alaska. The inside is a small store.
That's amazing. That's amazing how you guys do that. It really, truly is. I've seen that where someone will sit there and say, I think he told that about Hunter's Moon, how one time someone would come in and you see them walking through the doorway. They're in Texas, and you walk through and they're in California. And it's like, I mean, you watch it, you have absolutely zero idea that's exactly what happened. It's amazing how you guys do that.
Well, that's like we talked about. Yeah, Hunter's Moon, for your guy that was asking about it. Like part of it was shot in Kentucky, and then we had to shut down and recast and reshoot the bulk of the movie in a short, extended period of time in California. So in Hunter's Moon, the front of the house is all Los Angeles house, and then the sides and the back are all this historical house in Kentucky. We used three different cars for the family car because we couldn't get the same car from Kentucky, and so you have to get really creative, and you just kind of pray and hope and cross your fingers that like people aren't going to just be like, God, this is so noticeable. And so I say No Tears took it to a whole nother level because, like I said, I keep going back and thinking, we're doing a take, and Luke is like that wearing this huge coat, and I'm sweating in like the t-shirt, and I'm going, God, as soon as I can say cut, get that coat off that man, get him some water, fan him, like do whatever you can, because we shot all the the Skid Row area outside, and it was hot. It was incredibly hot. So all of that was yeah, and then Sarah and her team did some fake snow. There was some fake snow, not falling, but on the ground when he slips and falls. The other side of like I said, when we're in Alaska, we had my DP run and then slip as if he's the point of view, and then when he falls and bangs his head, the pointing down, they made some fake snow and ice around him. Again, in summer, in like the middle of this area of Dothan, that's like a city area. And so like, they're on the ground, and the guy leans over on, and so that was, again, it was just like kind of marrying those two worlds. And so I think with having enough of the footage we shot with the drone stuff and the wildlife stuff,
what was the main reason why you shot in Alabama? It was because of cost. I mean, Georgia's not right far from you. Wouldn't it have been a little bit better to film there?
That time of year, well, I think that time of year we would have the same weather issue regardless of where we shot. I think, and so my producing on this project kind of happened after the fact. It was less of the actual physical producer, but yeah, I think the team in Alabama, Stephen and MD, they put together this amazing team, and Stephen's since passed away. So rest in peace, Stephen. They put together this incredible team in Alabama, and it's interesting because I've worked with a lot of the cast and the crew from No Tears on other projects. So like our special effects, Nathan Bright, who did all of the body parts and all the blood and guts and gore and stuff from No Tears. I just shot with him in Missouri on a project, Rough Draft, that I just did. So I carried him over. Larry, who's in No Tears, was in that movie, as was Gabrielle. So I try, and it's funny how you do these movies and you, for lack of a better way, work your ass off and just push, and you do things on a really tight budget, and then you find these amazing crew members and cast members, and you hit it off, and you're simpatico, and you just kind of like want to work with them again. And it's how I met Gabriella, who's like one of my best friends, was from No Tears.
Well, and she's incredibly gifted. I mean, all the ladies you had, Audrey. I mean, Audrey's really, I like Audrey. Audrey's a cool chick. And then Tatiana as well. I mean, your cast is great. So I mean,
that's a testament. Normally, I don't have casting directors on a lot of my projects, but Debbie Sheridan was the casting director on No Tears, and she just got this phenomenal cast. We were going through footage and stuff, so a lot of the people auditioned, and it was just through looking through auditions to find those pieces. I mean, obviously, I had worked with Tatiana before in Purgatory, so I brought her in. Eric Fellows, who plays the police officer, I worked with him in Purgatory as well, so I pulled those guys in, and I think I met Audrey through Tatiana, and Audrey put herself on tape and auditioned. But the rest of the cast, I think Gwen actually auditioned as well, interestingly enough. And so when we were looking for young Gwen, young mother, Kathy, who was a phenomenal actress, it was between Kathy and one other actress, and I've shared this with Kathy, so it's not anything she hasn't heard at this point, but we had two actresses that were equally talented, and I said to Debbie, okay, show them Gwen's audition, so that Gwen has a very, very specific speech mannerism patterns, and then have them redo their scene trying to mimic how Gwen kind of speaks. And then Kathy did it, and this other actress who I don't remember who she was, but Kathy nailed it, so much so, and Kathy might get mad at me for sharing this, but after Kathy started to see this film, she was like, oh my God, you dubbed my voiceover, you used Gwen and dubbed my voiceover. And she was upset and mad at me. And I said, Kathy, what are you talking about? And she's like, that's not my voice, that's Gwen. You did Gwen's voice over my voice. I said, Kathy, I swear to you, that is your voice. You were just that good at mimicking Gwen. That is your voice. We cleaned it up in post, but it caused like a riff. We had she was like upsetting me to the point where I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then afterwards we obviously kissed and made up.
Well, she must have been really, I mean, sometimes, has that ever happened, Michael, where an actor will come onto a set and maybe they're, not saying Debbie, because I don't know her, but has that ever happened where actors come on set and they don't, and maybe are lacking confidence in their development of their character they're playing. Like they know they're playing the character and they're trying to get into that skin, but I mean, but they don't feel confident that they're doing that. Like something's. I mean, to us, it looks absolutely fine, but to the artist, to the actor, they're sitting there going like, "Man, I'm just not getting this." Has that? I mean,
I
has
think,
that happened?
yeah, and I don't think Kathy was that way at all. I think she came in incredibly confident. I just think she hadn't kind of heard or seen herself. And again, there's something else I should put out there. Like we filmed No Tears in Hell like 4 years ago, so it took a while for certain things in terms. It wasn't like reshoots or anything like that. There wasn't any problems with the movie. Just the way that Hollywood kind of works sometimes. It just took. There's a slate of films that had been done in terms of getting it to post and a bunch of films, and it was kind of in line to get to the post, and so it just took a while. So I think it was just kind of in her case, she had been removed from the character and probably played a bunch of other characters because she's incredibly talented. Right. 4 years had gone by, but no, I think as a director and coming from theater when I was younger and coming from the acting world, and then being a parent and also running restaurants and stuff, part of directing is I guess a leadership role, if you will, is like trying to understand people in general and how different people need different things. And so, a lot of newer actors sometimes are questioning what they're doing. I've worked with actors before that have some kind of pull in terms of maybe they're investors on the project as well, or they're like producers. Right. And even them, they're like, "Can I see my take?" That happens a lot. And I'm like, "No." They're like, "Come on, let's roll back. Let me see the take." And I said, "There's nothing you're going to see on that take that's going to make you go, oh, this is great. Let's move forward." Because a lot of filmmaking, it's not like theater where you go out there and you do your performance and the audience is right there and it's a monologue and it's just you and the audience is giving you the feedback right there. Filming is, a lot of it is editing, it's sound design, it's music, and so you have to really trust. There has to be that level of trust between the director and the actors and the crew as well. Everyone has to kind of work collectively. So I would tell actors that, like, "Can I see that take?" It's like, you're not going to, it's just a take. You're not going to, no right. offense, but like, you're not going to look at it and go like, "Oh, I nailed it." You're just not going to see that, unless you direct. And not to say that directors are better than actors, that's what I'm saying. I'm looking at it through a different lens, so to speak, than an actor is.
Right.
So I learned pretty quickly on any set which actors, and I won't say coddling is not the right word. It's just supportive way that you look. Certain actors want, and it's just, I have 2 kids. My 2 kids are 3 kids, actually. They're all different in regards to what kind of support they need in terms of like when they're doing something. One child right. It's no different than actors. So when I'm on a set, if I have a cast of 12, there might be 1 or 2 that I notice right away. I'm like, I think I need to keep their confidence up a little bit more, or there's one that's very headstrong and they already know what they're doing and they've made interesting choices, and it's like, those ones I don't want to kill those interesting choices, so I want to empower them, but also if I need to massage that a little bit, sometimes there's not overconfidence, but I have to approach that very differently than a newer actor where I'm just kind of like, "Hey, kind of looking for something like this. What do you think about this? Can we retweak it?" But if there's a veteran actor, you approach it differently because they've forgotten more about filming than I've already learned. So it's like one of those things where you just kind of have to navigate the waters as to who you're working with. And it's no different with crew. It's no different with in every level of filmmaking. It's just understanding who you're talking to. How do you get what you need from that person and vice versa? And how can it be a collaborative process? Because one thing I learned pretty quickly is I don't want to be a director that comes in and goes like, "This is how we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to do it," and nobody says anything, and we just go forward. And I do work fast. Part of that is budget restraint, but also part of it is just the style I've come to love and actually use. So there's only so much time that can happen too. So that's the other part, is it's not like we have 3 months of rehearsals. There's none of that. So it's like you just kind of go, you talk through the project, and you go through and you go forward, and you're kind of learning. So these people are becoming the characters as the movie goes, if you will. And it's not shot in order either. So sometimes that's a challenge.
Doesn't shooting digital though? Does that make it easier for you to shoot quickly? Because before with film, it's just like, holy shit, But with digital, you can get in there. But do you find yourself doing more takes sometimes now with digital cameras? Like, okay, like maybe I'll allow myself. I know that Clint Eastwood, I think his is two. He allows like he allows two takes. But I mean, let's say you want three or four. I mean, that allows you the freedom to do that.
Yeah,
And as far as the actors, with a veteran, does a veteran basically just need to see like one time, like how do they look? Okay, that way I'm comfortable where I'm at. I look at the shot, I see exactly I'm supposed to be right where I'm supposed to be at, and I'm done. You won't see me again asking for anything because I'm confident where I need to be. Um, and do
I,
younger actors are the ones that probably ask you probably more than not if they could see the shot again, is don't they?
well, again, I don't show any actors any of the takes. I just refuse to do that. I just don't. Nothing
Right.
good comes out of it. But to your point, yeah, when you finish a take, so there's two things. Like, so if we were using film, which I've never done, you get 16 minutes of film, and then they got to change the reel, so it's like very
Yeah.
specific, very costly. So digital, you can just continually go. Although my producing partner Clay on this last one was like, you got to stop using these long. What I get in the habit of doing, it's an energy thing for me. So if the actors are close, so when I say cut, I'm looking at three things basically. I'm looking at the performance, the visual itself, and then I'm also looking at like my DP and the rest of the crew. Is there an issue technically? So like, let's say there's a boom that went in the shot, or a light goes out, or someone's not hitting a spot. So there's like three things that I'm looking at, and I have to do it relatively quickly to try and keep the actors in the thing. So like what I would do, and I brought up Clay because I guess the thing about digital is the more you let the camera roll, the hard drives get more. You're filling more and more of these hard drives, and they can be expensive. So I would take like a take that should be like the actual film itself, like if you will, like as a 1 minute on camera. I would let that roll for like 12 minutes because I would just keep doing take after take because it might be an energy thing where we're so close, or I'm just like, yes, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's no one move, everyone just go right ahead, go right again. And so you get these really long takes. And so Clay this last time was like, I know why you're doing it, but you got to cut those down because our hard drives are just getting longer and longer. So there's a negative to that too, but it's also again like if an actor is nailing it, and let's say the DP just he's like he sees something, and that's the other thing. Like Gev sees things that I don't necessarily see. It's like and I just look at him, and he'll go like, I need one more, and then I just if I'm doing my job right, and this is for actors that are watching, an actor shouldn't know why we're doing another take, in my opinion, unless I'm specifically asking them to do something differently. If I go in and give them notes or something, that's different. But if the director just wants to go again, it could be a whole litany of reasons. It could be, we had a sound issue, we had the light change, the sun went over and it did an overcast thing, and all of a sudden we don't like the way that the color looks all of a sudden. So there's just things. So the actor, if I'm doing my job right, the actors can stay here, the crew can move around them, can do different things, can adjust lights, and I also I have secrets that I'm not going to tell. I'll keep those secrets.
I did not know that about the digital cameras. I
Yeah.
thought basically it was like, you shot it, and I never thought about, like, okay, well, they shoot it, and then they keep the couple of takes they want. They
Yeah.
download it, and then they clear the camera, and then they're back up to the
Well,
next
that's
shot.
it. But there's still a level of like, if you think about it, have you ever gotten like that notice on your email, like, oh, you're running out of, or on your phone, like you're running out of
Yeah,
space, buy more
right.
space. It's very similar to that where, yeah, they come on, these little cards or whatever, you upload it in, there's a DIT, it's a technical position where they're uploading it and then they're sending that to the post house and the editor and stuff. But those cards can fill up quickly. That's the other thing is I'll be watching monitor and I'll see this blinking thing. There's two blinking things I'm looking for. Is like one is the battery's dying, so we have to switch the battery, and I can't have the battery die in the middle of a take.
No.
The other one is the card getting full. So those are two things. And again, if you're doing your job right, technically as a crew, as director, and the rest of the crew as an extension, the actors should have no idea of this. They should just be able to stay. And for me, it's like building this world, this safe space where they can come play in the sandbox, if you will, to do the job because they're playing a character. They have to kind of go into a thing. So the less technical I can get and all this stuff filling their heads and crap, I'd rather just go like stay. And that's why I do take quick takes. And I'm closer to Clint Eastwood. And I tell actors this before I work with them. That's why I keep working with the same actors. I'll give you 1 to 2 takes on your close-ups, and then I'll ask you, like, if I got what I want, I'm going to move on. But most of the time, I'll ask an actor, I'm good if you're good, and if they say I trust you, let's go on. Every once in a while, they'll go, can I get one more? Cool, then we do that. But those are close-up stuff and like wide shots and things like that. I'm very open with actors that I'm not going to do 6, 7 takes of a wide shot unless there's action involved. If there's like a fight choreographed scene, then that's different. Clearly, we have to.
I was gonna say too. There's probably another like where you're gonna slow it down. A fight scene you're gonna slow it down, and I'm also thinking too that you're probably gonna slow it down for for the nudity scenes.
Yeah, so this one I was.
You have to slow way down for that, don't you?
Yeah, so Nathan and his team, mainly it was Nathan, Jennifer, and I went in telling them, like, I had never worked. Nathan Brightest, incredible special effects makeup artist. I said, how much, like, be honest with me, how much time do you need to do some of these blood effects and things like that? Because I want to give enough time for those, because if those look campy and ridiculous, it totally takes you out of the film. And there's a real realism to this.
It doesn't. And believe me, I'm actually thinking about it right now, and my stomach is like flipping over a little bit. Like, I don't look at my bathtub quite the same way again. Thank you very much.
100%. So the things like that, and then the nudity. You have to, if you're doing nudity right, which I've been open about this too. I've done so much nudity that to date, not by choice a lot of the times. Like this one, nudity was very specific and it was written into the scripts. And I talked to both Gabriella and Michelle, who are the 2 actresses, what I wanted to accomplish, make sure they're comfortable. But we cleared the set to the bare minimum of people. We shut down the monitors out there so people aren't sitting there watching these people naked, and you give them the space to feel safe. And Jennifer, who was a part of Nathan's team, also operated as our intimacy coordinator. So she was kind of there. So there was a female there to be comfortable, robe and all that stuff. So I wanted to spend a little bit more time on that, because you don't, at the same time, as a man directing this, all the blood and guts is uncomfortable, but nudity is even more uncomfortable, because it's like, here's someone who's trusting you emphatically, not to be vulgar, and being raised predominantly by my mom and raising a daughter myself, the last thing I ever want is anybody, male or female, to feel they're already vulnerable, completely naked. So it's like, how do you make that safe space? And it goes back to your point, I'd rather rush through some of the other things so that you can spend a little bit more time there, so you could make sure that we're not pushing these women to be uncomfortable, or like, even like, again, the blood and guts stuff, getting away from the nudity for a second. It's like, I can't rush Nathan so that he's if I rush him too much, it's not going to look good. So rather than do 9 takes on someone saying a line, I'd rather give a little bit more time to that too. And then, again, just like you and I are talking right now, if I was filming us talking, if I mess up my line and your lines are perfect, we're cutting back and forth in the editing room anyway, so nothing has to be quote unquote perfect. There's a lot of performance that's built into any film or TV show that you watch that's done in the editing bay, because that's part of filmmaking as a whole. So I think that's it. And I was very fortunate with this cast and with this crew. No problem childs. Everybody came to work. We had fun, like I said, in between takes.
Oh, your cast is stacked. We got to talk about your cast, and I'm going to talk about how he casted it, because that's what really, to me, that's the heart and soul of the movie. Luke's performance is I would say it's probably the soul, and Grace is Gwen is, I keep on calling her Grace, but Gwen is probably the heart. Those two. Everything's wrapped around those two. We haven't mentioned that Gwen passed away after the movie was filmed. Was it unexpected? I know she. And how did you cast her? And I'm just so surprised she came up. It's the last thing you think of someone her age walking up to it. What do you want me to do? What part? What you want me to play? You want me basically play a cannibal? Yeah. Oh, okay, it's just that's got to be a hell of a story behind this. So how did it roll out?
So casting wise, Gwen and Luke, Michael Tadros Jr., and even more so Alex, were more involved with those 2 parts. So though I give them, and Debbie Sheridan, I don't know where Debbie started and they finished or whatever, but those 2 pieces were kind of I don't say given to me, but because like I said, Gwen put herself on tape, but they were like, these are the two people that we want to use. And I had already seen Luke in a movie, Wes Craven Presents, I want to say Girl with the Photograph or something like that. I had already seen him in that film. And I thought, okay, yeah, he's great. I wasn't very familiar with Gwen. Um, and I'll be honest, I think on the script, the mother part was significantly younger. But I didn't know this, but when we filmed with Gwen, she was 92 years old.
92. I thought oh, God.
92.
She was as old as June Squibb.
Yeah, so 92, and there's a couple of like interesting tidbits that I'll share. There's a couple of funny stories. So the first one, well, there was the sound guy kept coming up to me, and at first, let me just say, Gwen, phenomenal professional. Sound guy kept coming up to me and saying, like, I keep getting like this feedback. I don't know what it is. It's in my ears. Whatever. And I'm sitting there, and I don't know if it was me or the sound guy. And he goes, I think Gwen might have hearing aids in. Can we ask Gwen if she has hearing aids? And I went to Gwen and I said, I don't want to put you on the spot, Gwen, but are you wearing hearing aids? And she said, yes. Is it messing up your audio? And I said, yeah. And she goes, okay, yeah, no, I'm used to this. She goes, I'll take them off during the take, but I'm just letting you know, I'm not gonna be able to hear stuff when I take them off. So if you need to come give me notes, I either have to turn them back on or I have to be able to read your lips. And I said, oh wow, okay. So talk about a trooper. She was that dependent on it. And so she shut them off. Sure enough, in between takes, I had to make sure she could see me, and then sometimes she could turn it back on or whatever. So that was one story in terms of like her level of professionalism, because she didn't miss a beat. I think she must have been maybe used to it at that point or whatever, because she knew exactly what I was asking about. The other one was the first time we have her in front of the bathtub doing her thing. Right, I don't know if it was in the middle of the take or right before a take, she turns to the camera and she goes, well, got to say, in all of my careers, this is the first time I've ever done something like this. And then turns back around and goes to and everyone started laughing. Like total deadpan, completely serious, but the comic timing was like brilliant. And then there was a story that Luke had shared with me that he and her were having kind of in private, and I don't think this is an invasion of privacy by any stretch, but like she leans over to him and says to him at some point, like, hey, have you told anybody like that you're doing this film, like what this film's about yet? Like, your like friends and family know about this? And Luke was like, yeah, I'm a little hesitant. And she goes, me too. Like my sister was asking me what I was filming, or my sister or cousin or somebody, and I was like, I didn't know what to tell her. So little cute things like that. Like she was just such a sweet individual. But she came to work, and I didn't realize that she was 92 until she had passed. I think she passed either November or December of this last year. And I talked to her briefly right before that to do some of the ADR audio work for her dialogue. And I talked to her rep, and so even then she was like, I'm really excited about this film, and I hope you got everything you needed. And I said, Gwen, she never got to see the film. I'm really bummed out about that. But I said, Gwen, you're phenomenal in this film, and I really appreciate everything. So she did her ADR work. She did all the her audio loop that she had to do, and at that point she's 95, almost 96 years old. Went into where her reps were, and they helped her out doing it and stuff like that. But it was then I learned that she passed away, and I didn't even realize until recently, because at the end of the film, I put in remembrance of Stephen, who was one of our line producers in Alabama, who put together the team there. But Gwen had passed after the film had been completely put together, so I wasn't able to put any remembrance of her, unfortunately. So, but yeah, that's those are some stories that I remember of Gwen. Her coming to set and just.
It was so unique. It was so unique. When you told me how old she was, I was thinking, like I like 99.9% of the women Gwen's age would have been doing Hallmark, would have been doing sitcoms, and
or
here
not,
you
or
are
not working. I mean, at 92, well, there's not a lot of actors, men or women, that are working. I mean, that's.
I was just so blown away, and I'm just sitting there watching her, and her and Luke had great chemistry together. They really did. I mean, and then the only thing I was wondering about was the scene where she's going outside to get rid of certain items, and I was just wondering, that cannot be her doing that.
That was the body double, thankfully. Yeah, no, I posted a scene earlier today, or maybe it was last night, where Luke says to her, "We might have a problem," and her performance in that scene is like, she looks at him, She wipes her mouth, she thinks, and then she just looks at him in complete control and says, "Then take care of it." But she does like these. There's like 4 beats that she does in the course of maybe 1.5 seconds that are so subtle and so. I don't think I even realized it while we were filming it. I'm like, this woman has come to work, and she put in these little nuances that are just so great, so great. Even like the looking out the window at the end. She came prepared. She has some great stuff.
I tell you the one word that when I hear it now, it sort of like gives me that sort of the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah.
Is when someone says baby, because she says, "Okay, baby," and I'm just like, oh, just like it's so creepy how she said it. It's like so effective, because
Yeah.
maybe normally if they were just normal people, but knowing what they were, it says you gotta be careful, baby, and it's just like you felt it was just like, oh, you just got the heebie-jeebies. Great performance. I mean, great performance. I mean, it's just absolutely tremendous. And now Luke, was Luke? I mean, how much of the casting? I know there are some actors that you put in, Gabriella, Audrey, and Tatiana. Were you in charge of the entire casting process? So that was you behind casting Gwen?
No, I mean, honestly, like I said, Alex and Michael, particularly Alex, and I think in collaboration with Debbie Sheridan, the casting director, they kind of picked out, because this was Alex's baby, not to use the word baby again, but this was Alex's idea. It's the story by credit. So, like I said, those 2 pieces I was less involved with. The rest, Debbie, had a bunch of actors put themselves on tape. And then her and I collectively went through it, and I didn't put Gabrielle in. I didn't even know Gabrielle at that time, so just kind of looking at auditions, putting the pieces together. The only people that I knew prior to filming that I had a direct hand in, obviously, was Tatiana.
Right.
By extension, Audrey, who I hadn't met, but Tatiana knew her. So Audrey auditioned as well. Tatiana, no, I don't think I had Tatiana audition, and then Eric, I didn't have Eric audition. So I had those 2 plus Audrey. And then everybody else we picked through audition.
You hadn't met Gabriella yet. You guys weren't friends yet.
Yeah. I didn't know her. She posted on social media, if anyone has a chance to look it up, her audition versus the actual scene, which is really cool. Because I've been kind of doing that too, where I've been putting the screenplay of a scene opposite the finished product of the scene. I think that's kind of cool to see that. But Gabriella put her audition tape versus the scene as it was filmed. Because the scene that was the audition. So when Debbie and I were putting the cast together, Debbie was like, "Well, send me scenes that you want these actors to put themselves on tape." And so I think Gabriella's part was where she's asking for socks. It was that scene with her and Luke.
Yes.
I didn't talk to her about this, but I recognized the voice opposite her who was reading with her as another actress that I got to work with through on second chances through Gabriella. So I recognized someone else's voice. It's just funny how all these things work out that way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, of course, now you guys got to know each other, because I told her this, you and I were talking about this for, I don't know what it is. It's just me, I guess, how I'm wired, but it's like, I mean, now if you look at it now, it's like when I saw the scene, because she did that scene, I'm thinking to myself, you guys were friends back there, and you're super protective, like, okay, like, we're gonna do this right. I'm gonna make sure. And then I was just thinking about that and going like, yeah, this is a really, it's a really important scene in the movie. But like I told her too, I think I told you as well. It's like once I get to know somebody like that, like, I talk to Gabriella a lot and whatnot. Now I can't go back. I can't look at that scene because she's my friend.
Part of the love. Yeah,
does that ever happen to directors where you shoot a certain scene with an actor you really like maybe have them killed off or whatnot, and then you see the movie? Can you watch that with a I guess you could watch it with your director's eye versus like a fan eye? Have you ever avoided certain scenes with your friends in them?
Not so much avoiding, but this one, like a continuation of what I was saying about the screenwriting process, was like while we were filming, and I'm not sure how I came up with this, but I told the most of the crew ahead of time. there's going to get to a place where there's the violence, where it's going to be incredibly uncomfortable, and me as a person, as a human being, as an empathetic person, I'm going to want to say cut when it gets too far, but I'm not going to. When I hit that moment, I'm going to let it go further. So I'm just letting everybody know that. I let the actors know that. So like there were a few moments where, and I've been open about this, where people were kind of like, the crew members were at monitor and just kind of walking away, like glassy eyed, some tears. Like it's really hard to watch. Like Gabriella's scene in particular was one of those. The scene with Audrey was certainly one of those. And there was a moment, I don't remember which one of those, I can't, it was one of those two probably, where I had to actually excuse myself too after the take. I had to go to the restroom and just like, had to kind of remind myself, like, this is just a movie, but there's also this weight of like,
Yes.
I took creative liberties. Obviously I wasn't in the room, and God forbid that this ever actually really happened. So like, how things happened, those are creative liberties. I wrote those into the script. I wasn't there for those, tragically, the actual victims that this man killed in real life. But there is that weight of this, like, we're making this movie. It is a dramatization to some level, but I did try and keep as much of the true story as I could. So there's this weight of like, okay, yeah, we're making a fictitious thing. I know the fake blood. I've seen the fake stuff. I know these actors. They're going to be able to get up and walk away afterwards. But people that actually this happened to couldn't walk away, and this actually happened. And in real life, they were much younger than the cast that I had. Some of them were like children, and so it's like that weight. Even as I'm saying it now, there's like a heaviness to it.
Yes.
It's hard to walk away from that, and to be there and be present with that. And so, but in order to do the film the right way, and to not have it be exploitive, which is certainly what I wasn't trying to do, you're aware of this, and I think the cast and the crew are aware of this, and it was really hard to do. So letting it go, letting those graphic scenes go longer than, like a lot of the reviews are saying this too, like right when you think, okay, enough, it just, you stay there longer. It keeps you there longer. And it was done intentionally because I want people to feel that. I want people to feel that uncomfortableness, because that's kind of that fly on the wall of like, this really happened. And this is, we're not watching this. This shouldn't be comfortable. I don't think this is a film where people are going to be celebrating and going like, yeah, this is a good time. This isn't that kind of film. It's not a comedy. It's not something that's funny. It's based around a true story, and these are horrific things. And for whatever reason,
it's extreme horror. It really, that's how I tell it. It's extreme horror. It's like, and there's a lot of, I mean, I know a lot of people who will watch this movie and they'll like it because of that aspect of it. I mean, there really are. There's a lot of people who like like it, an extra second or two on the scene. But yeah, you're right. I think that's what really makes it more powerful, is the fact that it is based off a true story. I mean, if it's just been, like you watch somebody like, Friday the 13th or Freddy Krueger, there's a lot of violence in there. There's a lot of kills in there, and a lot of, victims in pain and whatnot. But it's just fantasy. It's just, okay, I see that as fantasy. But then you come back to a movie like this and you realize that, hey, this is based on somebody's, this is what they did. And it's just like, that's what gives you the, the heebie-jeebies. That's why the Dahmer miniseries, that's why it became a water cooler topic, because that guy existed. And he did these things.
Yeah.
This isn't make up. You're not living in a fantasy world anymore. This is for real.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's a scene in and I don't know where comes from. I have to ask you this question. This is one of the questions I wanted to ask you, but okay, I can watch anything. I mean, I guess pretty much watch anything. So the one I think even more for me, what got me too was, and you're not the only filmmaker to do this. I just don't know if this is just like a new trend in horror or what, but what the fuck's going on with the necrophilia? Is that I mean, is that a thing now? I mean, when when you make a horror film, do you look at other films to see what people are sort of digging on, what they're sort of liking on? I mean, maybe not with this movie since it's based off a true story, but just horror in general. Are there like,
So
I don't want to say ape another filmmaker, like let's make a one called Megan 2 and put it out there at the same time. I'm just saying, like, what are fanboys saying on bulletin boards and and groups and stuff like
That was one of the creative liberties, because trying to do research on this guy, there were certain things that I was able to find. There were certain pieces that were missing, so I had to kind of fill in the pieces. And one of the things that kept coming up, was he wasn't. I wasn't there. Maybe there was necrophilia, but he was clear. He was raping all of these people. So he was raping them while they were chained up, while they were there. And I said to myself early on in this process, I said, there's already enough horrific stuff in the script. I don't want to write a movie and then direct it and then subjugate people to sit through these like horrendous rape scenes where, for whatever reason, I know that sounds crazy. Like necrophilia is okay, rape is not. I get it, but like there's a stillness to the necrophilia. It's like I feel like the way we shot it, there's a stylization to it. If I had someone screaming and yelling, and then there's this, sexualization to it, and on top of the graphic violence, it just became so overwhelming to me that from the script stage, I flat out said, I'm just changing this. I have to show that there is a sexual element to it, particularly because one of the things that kept coming up in what limited research I was able to find was that, the mom character, the mom in real life and him had shared a bed until he was 12 years old. So there was I was like, there is some kind of thing. And off the top of my head, the dad character, there wasn't a whole lot in there with the dad, but one of the things that I think happens a lot in these serial killer stuff is like I wanted to unpack like that dynamic of like, is a killer born a killer or made into a killer by environmental aspects, or is it a little bit of both, or is it a DNA thing? And so I think backing up and doing some of those flashback scenes and kind of giving Luke somewhat of a three-dimensional character instead of a caricature to play, I think was important. But the necrophilia was not something that I was like, yeah, let's go do it. I'm excited to do it. But it was like the alternative, completely lose the sexualization, which I felt like wasn't right, or having these horrible women, screaming and then trying to film that. And I was just like, you know what? I've filmed sex scenes before that weren't rape, and it's hard enough to try and maneuver those, especially at the pace we were going. And I knew, this is definitely a lower budget movie. We don't have a big studio backing. This isn't millions of dollars by any stretch. So it's like, I don't have the time to do it, and talking about doing it the right way. Having Michelle be already dead, having Luke do his thing, having the deed somewhat off camera, and then washing our hands of it, so to speak, with the towel. And that was Luke's idea, I think, to wipe himself in the sweat and stuff like that. It gets the ick aspect of it and the sexual aspect of it without us having to have this.
I didn't get that at all. I'll be honest with you. I did not get the sexualization of that. I didn't. It wasn't like I didn't see it as that. I just saw it as like, holy shit. I mean, but it's not the first movie I've seen it before, and it shocked the shit out of me is when, like when you approached Luke with that scene. Or I guess when he came up to it, did he have any reservations about doing that scene? Because that, I don't know. That's bonkers. That's a bonkers scene. I don't want to say in all things possible, we've seen lots of sexual assault in movies. We've seen that. But I can tell you right now, I can count the scenes that I've seen where there's been necrophilia. I could probably, on one hand, can I tell you 5 movies that I've seen it in?
Yeah.
It's just so utterly jarring. It's like, what the hell? I just wanted to know if and how did you have to talk to Luke about this? Was he aware of the? Obviously, he was aware of the script. Was he aware of what he was being asked to do? Because that's a risky scene to shoot, don't you think, as an actor?
Yeah, he's basically simulating getting off on it too as well. So he was certainly not comfortable filming it. I'll just say that. But it was this whole thing of commitment to the part, and let's go do it and just get it over with. And clearly, when he's doing the simulated thing, Michelle's not under him. That's again, movie magic. So it's just the bed and him. So there's that. So it makes it a little bit easier, where it's just going back to the make believe aspect of it. But yeah, they're it's just one of those things too, where there was a buildup of how horrific can this situation get, and that's kind of that gradual ascent into madness and just horrible stuff. And some of my friends that have watched this or family members are like, every time I thought it wasn't going to get worse, Jesus, you go and you make it worse. And it's like, that was intentional, clearly.
Yeah, that's the compliment. That's the compliment. That's how I felt too. It's just like, I'm thinking, I've seen that, like, the only thing that threw me off, like I said, the only scene I could not watch, I couldn't watch Gabriel's. I
Yeah,
just
that
couldn't.
was really
Call me a wimp, so
uh,
be it. I can handle that. I just couldn't watch it. I just, I know, but she's like a friend, and it's just like
yeah,
I talk to her. We love Haley Bennett together. I mean, I just
yeah,
couldn't watch her. I couldn't watch her do that scene, but I also know how important it was, and it drives the story, it drives the narrative. Totally understand that, and totally support it. It's like, and hats off to her for doing it. I mean, that's a hard scene to act in. That's a
yeah.
hard scene to do.
One of the first conversations her and I ever had was a phone call, and I think we've laughed about this since. Was like, I told Debbie, the casting director, I was like, I want to talk to the two actresses that are going to have the nudity, and kind of just, I've done this enough to know that I don't want that first time to hear my voice and to see me the first day they're showing up on set, they have to have nudity or even the violence. And I'm talking to Gabriella, and I don't know her from Adam, and I'm just kind of like talking, and I'm uncomfortable. I'm just kind of like, we'll do it classy and we'll do this thing. And at one point, I don't know if she just, because her and I just kind of get each other now, but she was like, I'm totally fine with the nudity. Like, I've done it before. Don't even worry about it. Like, she was just like, you're stressing out about it. You don't have to stress out about it. And I'm like, oh. She goes, yeah, I've done it before. Don't worry. I'm totally fine with it. And then Michelle was cast very late. I think we had one actress. She couldn't do it, so Michelle was cast, and she was supposed to just be nude from the back. And then when we're doing the stuff in the tub, she had like clothes on, and she just looks at me and she goes, "Does it make more sense if I?" She's like, "I don't really care. Like, are you worried about like seeing like a bra and stuff?" And I go, "Okay." So she was like, "Yeah, it makes more sense if I'm topless too. Like, just whatever." Like, I was amazed to see like the level of like, because also this is a society thing too, especially in the United States, where we're like completely fine with like uber violence, but God forbid we see nudity. It's like, I think there was a South Park episode about this too, and like the whole nipple slip of the Super Bowl, the hypocrisy around this is like, we can show violence and someone's head exploding and all that stuff, but if we see a topless woman, we're all like, oh my God, no.
Yeah.
It's just so ridiculous because we all come from women. Most of us have been breastfed. It's like, it's only sexual because we've made it that way, but it's like, obviously this is a whole other animal because there's violence and it's a serial killer involved. So we're not talking about someone walking around on a nude beach. We're talking about violence tied in with nudity. But yeah, I was surprised at both actresses, the level of commitment, but it's also, I credit the crew with this as well, and building a safe space. And that's the same thing with Luke and Gwen and everybody else involved. If you were able to build a safe space where people can just come to work, they can have fun, they can feel safe, they can do their thing, they can go to these difficult places, and then when you say cut, you know that they're okay. That's an accomplishment, I think, as a filmmaker, in terms of like putting together the right team. And I was very fortunate across the board from everybody involved on this project to just have consummate professionals who came to work and just made it work, and from the cast to the crew to everybody, just the post-production, the executive producers, everybody across the board. I think it really shows in the finished film. It's something I'm really proud of.
I think this movie is going to find its audience for sure. It might take a little bit. I remember last year with The Coffee Table, which is...
You mentioned that, yeah.
Have you watched that movie yet?
No, you told me to, and it's on my list.
I'm just, I have to put the disclaimer out there too, especially since you're a father. Just be aware of what you're watching. I mean, as a father, it might upset you. Just want to throw that out there. I put disclaimers out every time that movie is so it's very much like No Tears in Hell. It's like it's a rough movie. I mean, it's not for everybody. But by God, if it isn't going to be one of the top films you see of the year, I mean, No Tears in Hell is definitely.
Yeah.
No Tears in Hell is definitely going to be in my top 5.
Wow. I was like surfing. I was looking online last night, and I found someone who stumbled upon No Tears, who does a podcast and review. And he hadn't been sent a screen or anything like that. And he really was like blown away by it. So I reached out to him today. So it's starting to kind of get that word of mouth, because it's not a hard film. S&R Films is who's distributed it. Gatto and Jordan, their distribution company, and it's those guys. It's a challenge because it's not a film, whether it's domestic or international, where, and Gabriella's talked about this with me too. It's like even asking friends and family, hey, check out this thing that we're really proud of, but it's gonna be a hard.
Yeah.
I had an aunt that watched it. I had one aunt that is big into horror. I was like, oh, she'll love this. And I had another aunt that I was like, maybe, sit this one out. And I was surprised the sit this one out one had watched it too, and was like, whoa, like, what did I just watch? She was complimentary, but I just couldn't even imagine her sitting there watching this. And it's like, but it's important. I mean, anybody who's watching this that goes and watches it, if you rent it or buy it on Amazon, please go on Amazon, leave a review. Because that's how Amazon's algorithms and stuff like that. That's how these smaller films get to when you watch a film on Amazon Prime, it'll say viewers who like this will also like this. This is how you get your films into these other little algorithm spots where someone can discover No Tears in Hell if they've watched XYZ film. So the more viewers, watching it is one thing on any platform that's available to rent or buy, but getting the reviews out there, posting about it on social media, all of those things that get it out there helps move the needle in terms of these small independent films. And it's frustrating because of the content. It's not for everybody, but yeah, the more eyes and ears that we can get and mouths talking about it, the better.
I enjoy talking about it. I mean, I maybe there's this small part of me that has that little dark shadow, because I mean, I like telling people about I like telling people No Tears, and I like telling, I watched this movie Malicious, and I like telling people about that. It's like, yeah, go ahead and watch that. And then you sort of sitting there going wait till they get a load of that. And then, then they come back and they says, well, I did tell you, you can't be upset about what you watched. You got to love it. It's a good movie. It's a strong movie. But that's not the only thing we're going to be talking about today too, because you wrote and directed a half-hour soap opera, action soap opera, I should say, called Second Chances. Now, I don't think we've ever talked about Second Chances.
No,
Second Chances, I don't think.
No, these executive producers, Wahag and Bagrat, these two brothers from Armenia, they did a show called Nova Vita that I worked on maybe 6-7 years ago at this point, where I was brought in. That was a 10-episode TV show. It's got some recognizable actors in it, like Titus Welliver's in it. He's great. Stephen Baldwin. There's a bunch of actors that, if you recognize, it's on Amazon Prime, I believe. Freebie, which I think is through Amazon Prime. But I was brought in to kind of do a polish on all 10 episodes of the script. Went in there, and then they were like, "Can you stay on set to kind of script supervise?" And I was like, "I don't script supervise." And they said, well, "Let me rephrase that. We kind of, because we're block shooting 10-episode, hour-long episodes, we need someone who is very dialed in, that can work with the director and work with the actors and kind of say okay, this is episode." Because we might shoot a scene from episode 1, and then later in the day shoot a scene from episode 9 with the same actor, and just kind of saying okay, this is what happened in between, because I had just worked on the script. I was more dialed in than anybody else on set in regards to the chronological areas of how it worked. So I was on set helping out with that, and I think they got, they were looking to speed up production, or just, they were looking at cost or something, and they said, "Do you direct?" I said, "Yeah." And I think Hunter's Moon at that point. So for Nova Vita, they had me. They were like, "We want you to go do second unit," and this is a true story. So I go, "Yeah, no problem." And so second unit is traditionally, it's like drone stuff, or stock, driving car shots, and just little pieces, little action segments that, especially in TV, never has the main cast. It might have a secondary thing. But I get the call sheet the next day, first day I'm supposed to direct. At that point, I had only done part of Hunter's Moon. I hadn't even finished Hunter's Moon. We had shot the part in Kentucky. We had to shut down and recast. We were recasting, and then I was going to go shoot the rest of it, and we shot it here. So I still had only limited directing experience in terms of features at that point, but I understood narrative. I obviously, Hangman had come out at that point. Obviously, I understand how to tell a story, but I get the call sheet, and there's all these main actors on it, and I'm like, "What the hell is this?" So I'm basically shooting a second unit of the first unit too. So they just went like this for the rest of production, where I was just shooting scenes, and the other director, Santiago, was shooting his scenes, and we were sometimes borrowing direct actors, and one actor would go from me to him, and we were shooting all over LA, and it was just this like crazy experience where it was like, I think maybe I'd done Purgatory at that point too. I can't remember if I'd done Purgatory. I think I lose track of which time-wise, but anyways, long story short, we finished that. I was uncredited as a director. I was uncredited as a writer. I was a supervising producer was my credit on that, even though I Santi would admit to this too. I directed quite a bit of it, and I don't want to take anything away from the writer, but I did a polish mostly on the dialogue aspect. So after that, since then I've worked with Vog or Bogrot, doing a lot of writing, a lot of TV shows, some of the stuff that they like kind of try and put together, and they went.
Were they the people behind? Were those the people?
Yeah, they're the money guys between Nova Vita, so they kind of, it's their story idea. They financially do it. They're an independent studio, if you will, and so they speculatively. So like, it's not like they're doing a show for Netflix. They basically put their own financing behind it. They go and they do these television shows or films, and then they sell it after the fact. And so they had done. They reached out to me. This is years after this. They were like, we shot a season of a TV show called Second Chances, and I said, yeah, I remember you guys sent me the script. It was kind of like a soap opera thing, right? And they said, yeah, we shot it. We kind of Roberto is the main director for season 1. He's a good friend. And Johnny Martin, who directed Hangman, actually did some of season 1 as well. So those two went, and I'm not sure about the writers. There was like 3 writers on the project, and so it was exactly like you said, it was a soap opera, a melodrama kind of thing. And so they said, like, after we filmed it, they were like, yeah, we kind of think we should have went a little darker. We want to do 2 other seasons. Can you write and direct 2 other seasons? And I said, well, I mean, yeah, but like, you want me to do it like how I would do it? Or they were like, we want you to go dark. And I'm like, guys, it's not going to match what you did for season 1. And they're like, we're going to recut season 1. So they recut season 1. They showed it to me, and I'm like, okay. So as I'm writing, it was a really interesting process. So they're half-hour episodes. So like the scripts are about 24 to 27 pages, and you kind of get a beginning, middle, and end, and they're all continuous. They didn't know which actors would come back from season 1. So I had like 2 versions of the script, and so it's like these intertwining storylines with these 3 characters. So some of season 1 actors came through. Some of the season 1 actors I had to rewrite and write them out and say where they were. So it was kind of like this thing. And so it was a lot of fun writing it and really putting these stories together. And then when we went to film, it was an incredibly tight budget. We were shooting like a soap opera. I mean, there were days where we were shooting like 20-page days, which is unheard. That's a soap opera can get away with that because they usually have like a stage and it's globally lit, so the actors come in and they don't have to adjust lights, and you just kind of go through and you go very quickly. But if you watch the show, you can see there's all different locations. So every time we went to a different location, they had to light, we had to get creative, and all this other stuff. And so we're juggling all these storylines, and so we were able to shoot seasons 2 and 3 with some great actors. That was the other thing too. Like, there was a casting director, Jen Glazer, who is phenomenal. She cast Nova Vita as well, but we were going so quickly per production that like Jen was having a hard time getting cast members, and so we were like calling in favors. So Gabriella was like influential on this too. I'd be like, Gabby, who do you have that could do this? Because Gabby had read all the scripts too. I'd sent them back to Gabby, and I said, look, I wrote a part for you, Gabby, if you're into it. I didn't tell her. I said, Gabby, I would love to work with you again. This is the next thing I worked with on Gabby. I said, I wrote a part for you. I'm not going to tell you what part it is, but why don't you read these scripts and you tell me which part you like? And so she read all 20 of my episodes, and she's like, yeah, I really like the character Letty. I go, perfect. That's who I wrote for you, which is true. I'm not making any of this up. So she's phenomenal on this TV show. But yeah, it was like, even like right before we were ready to start shooting, I thought I had one actress from season 1, and then they're like, no, we didn't get her. So we got this part. Can you make it work? And I'm going like, guys, this isn't like, I have to like keep flipping story, and like it was a challenge to the point where I'm normally pretty calm on production. I had the same DP who I work with all the time, as No Tears was on this, and my producing partner Clay, who worked on Hunter's Moon with me in Purgatory. The 3 of us are like the 3 amigos, and by the end of production, a couple of times we tried to murder each other. No pun intended here. Like we were at each other's throats because it was just so. there was just so much going on. It was so fast, and like, but I look at the show. I watched the whole 3 seasons, and it's very different than No Tears. There's still like my stuff. There's still an edge to it. Roberto's stuff is great, but it's definitely got more of a, like I told my aunt, the one that I didn't think would watch No Tears. I was like, I watch Second Chances. I think it's a little bit more of your, there's storylines. There's still some edge to it, but it's nothing like No Tears. Like, so anyone who's not going to watch the serial killer stuff, if you pop over to Tubi, it's called Second Chances, yeah, it's a cool watch, and I put in a lot of like my own personal. This is one thing I did too. There's a lot of my personal stories hidden into some of the storylines, and so I was emotional watching some of that stuff too. There's the actress, actually, her name is McKenna, who came up to me before we started filming, and she was like, I feel like this part was written for me, like this hits so close to home. And she didn't, it's the first time I was ever meeting her, and I said, you know what, the monologue that you say, you're talking about your dad as the character. I said, this is a story about my dad. I said, so it's a very, like what you're about to encapsulate my parents and stuff like that, is it's very personal to me. So she's like, it's incredibly personal to me too. It was like perfect casting. I had no idea, she had no idea. So like, and I watched the scene, I was in tears. I watched it the other day, I was in tears too. She's just so good. Opposite Jose, who plays Faquito, who's an incredible actor too. So there's just a lot of great actors in it. Performances are
there is.
Yeah.
You got the one actress that caught my attention and was Anna Lynn McCord. She was in that. I was like, oh, I know her. I know who she is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of her stuff.
Yeah, she's great. She's a sweetheart. She's also big charity wise in terms of like sexual abuse survivors, particularly kids and stuff like that. So like her whole storyline, which is wrapped in with Gabby's storyline, that was something that I was speaking to as well. Sexual abuse and things like that. So I didn't know that. I had never met her before either. So there was a lot of like personal stuff in regards to like things that are near and dear to my heart. And so like there's these things, tone wise and themes and things like that are wrapped into this melodramatic soap opera with some great performances. So yeah, Daniel Hill is also in season 3. I don't know if you got to season 3 yet, but Daniel R. Hill is one of the lead actors for season 3.
That's right, our good friend Cheetah.
Good friend Cheetah, yes. Cheetah's about to blow up because he's in the new Gus Van Sant movie that just premiered at Venice and Toronto Film Festival, and it's getting Oscar buzz stuff for the film itself with Bill Skarsgård, and Daniel R. Hill is in the movie and has a big part. So he
deserves it. He deserves it.
What a great guy.
He really deserves, and he's extremely talented.
Yeah.
And I got to watch him, and we did a deep discussion on Rust Creek, and man, blown away. I did not see the Joe Lynch movies yet. I did not. All I know is I kept on asking Joe Lynch. Every time I saw him on Twitter, I'd be sitting there asking him, like, he'd be talking about his new film, and it's in there. Says, any room for a cheetah in there? It's just it was a running joke, and then finally he says, well, actually there is. And it had to be Daniel Hill was playing his character's name was Cheetah.
Yeah.
And I had the biggest laugh with Joe Lynch on that. And I got a chance to talk to him, and I commented on that. We had such a ball with that. It's like, just need some Cheetah. It's like this, but Daniel, he's intense. I like Daniel. I have so much respect for him, and I'm so glad that it's happening. Actually, I was going to ask you, the producers of Second Chance. Are these the same? Are these the same gentlemen that had you come in to work on Death Squad as well?
No. That's the weird part. So Clay, my producing partner, Clayton Turnage, he brought me in for Death Squad to do a quick rewrite, and then he brought me in for Purgatory to do the rewrite and to direct those. So Purgatory is on Amazon Prime, as well as Tubi. 2 seasons of Purgatory, which is the poster behind me. That's a TV show that I wrote and directed and co-directed with Hayek. So we filmed that. Death Squad was filmed in Armenia, in Yerevan as well. I had nothing to do with the direction in regards to Death Squad, but Purgatory, I went to Armenia with Clay, and that's where I worked with Eric and Tatiana for the first time. With Hayek I co-directed with the Armenian director Hayek, really talented guy out there. But yeah, no, just by sheer coincidence, that was happening. And then the two brothers here in Glendale, California, are from Armenia. They're from Yerevan. Have their fingerprints all over a lot of Armenian media in general. They have like a TV network here in Glendale, California. That's the biggest one in the world in terms of like television, I think, for Armenian television. They did Nova Vita. So two totally different, unrelated, outside of the fact that Armenia is the connective tissue, but there's no connection. It's just so Purgatory, Death Squad one side, Nova Vita, Second Chances other side. Both have origins from Armenia, Yerevan, but Purgatory, Death Squad filmed in Armenia, Second Chances and Nova Vita filmed in Glendale, California.
Yeah, cause I'd say the boys from at least two of the boys from Death Squad are doing extremely well. I haven't talked to Josh Hahn in a little bit, but I know that Mike Markoff and Mike Ferguson are both doing extremely well.
So both Josh and Mike Ferguson are in Second Chances.
Are they? Oh, really? Now,
Yeah.
what year did you shoot? What year did you shoot this?
So Second Chances was filmed 2022, 23, maybe somewhere around there.
Not that long ago.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that long ago. So Josh came in and did a favor for us because he's close with Clay, obviously, and he has a part opposite Daniel. So Josh and Daniel Hill are in a scene together. And then Mike Ferguson came in and did us a favor, and it does a great scene with Jose and Carolina. Also a great scene. So both of them, I think they're both in season 3, but I worked with both of them. Small parts, not huge reoccurring or anything like that, but both came in, both professionals, and I loved working with both of them. Would certainly work with them again. And but yeah,
they're all three of them. They're amazing. They're amazing human beings.
Yeah,
they really are. And it's like this is so cool. And it's like I've been watching Mike Markoff. He's getting he's definitely on the rise.
I met him briefly at a party, I think. And I saw him in what TV show was that? The guy that stars in Twister was in a TV show where he plays like
Glenn Powell.
Yeah,
Glenn
TV show or movie or something like that where he plays a hitman.
That's what it was called. It was called Hitman.
Yeah, Mike's in that. I recognized him.
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, that's Mike. But I haven't worked with him. But yeah, Mike Ferguson and Josh are in Second Chances season 3. Just don't know which.
That's so cool. Do you feel like a little bit of like a proud papa when you see an actor who you've given maybe like one of the first credits, like probably within the first 5 credits of their career, right? You give them a lift up. Do you keep track of your actors that way? Like I wonder how Joe Smith's doing. Let me just see how they're doing. Look up on the IMDb page, knowing full well that you had a hand in their career, in their career being, on the rise. It's like, do you feel that? I mean, do directors feel that way? Like, not necessarily claiming credit, but definitely having the foresight and the skill to sit there and say, yeah, let's cast him in this role here because I feel like he'll fit the role the best. And then,
I think it's less of like, I think it's less of like taking credit, more so like when you film something, there's such a family dynamic behind it that like even if it's a short period of time that you spend with somebody, there's an intimacy to it that it's hard to replicate in any other kind of dynamic because you're filming something that's very expensive. It's very time is very important. But ultimately, we're doing children's stuff. Like we're telling stories like we would, tell a child. We're playing like we played when we were kids, right? So there's this like kind of like give and take, if you will. So like when I see an actor that I've worked with, this happens a lot. Gwen, who's in No Tears, he plays the handyman. He and I have stayed in touch over the years, and he's always sending me. Hey, Michael, I just did this film, like, check it out. And I'm always excited to hear from him. And so every now and then I'll be watching a film or a movie or TV show and I'll see somebody. So that happens with him quite a bit. I'm like, oh, there he is. There was a young actor who I worked with in a film that never came out. I saw him in a commercial on social media. So I reached out to him. I was like, hey, dude, check you out. Like, I mean, he was young when I worked with him. He was probably 8 or something like that. So I think he's probably 12. But yeah, even I get excited because it's so hard to make it in this business. And Daniel and I talk about this, and Gabby and I talk about this as well. like just to see people continually fighting the good fight and getting parts and giving everything that they have and chasing a dream because the odds are stacked against everybody. It's the likelihood,
Right.
and anybody that you work with, you keep hoping. And this is, I never understood people that get like this level of like jealousy or like they just like, well, why isn't that me or whatever. It's just like, I'm just so grateful to see anybody that I've had any piece of my career, even if we didn't hit it off or even if we had a falling out or whatever, if you're able to like keep going and chase your dream, I'm going to always support that because that's what I want. I've been chasing a dream for over 20 years. And I want
Right.
I want my kids to be dreamers too. And I think the world needs dreamers, and we're just so programmed as a society to like beat that down and go get a 9 to 5 and stability and this and this and this and this and this. And it's like, if that's the case, then all of the art that we all, like during the pandemic, that's all anybody did was watch TV, watch movies, read, paint, do art. Like all of a sudden, art became this really important thing when you took away the rest of the world and we were stuck to just be entertained. It's like there's an importance to entertain people and to give back in that aspect. So yeah, I love seeing people that I've worked with succeed, and I love staying in touch. I have social media. I have a love-hate relationship with, but I will say
Yes.
that's the best part about social media is being able to see even people I grew up with or people I went to high school with. There's a couple of authors that came out of my hometown that I didn't even know that they were authors, and it's exciting to see them succeed. There's a couple of athletes that either I went to school with that became professional athletes while I was there, or younger ones that are now doing it. It's like I just get excited. Just that whole like, how do you support these people to like just the level of commitment it takes to kind of excel at a craft that's programmed to push people to like get you away. Like it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. I love seeing anybody I've worked with on any project.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It is exciting. I'm excited every time you come up with something new. I mean, I'm super psyched up because of course I have ulterior motives that I want you to pop big because I think if you pop big, then you can go back to visit the werewolf family, which that's my ulterior motive. I'll be honest with you. It's like if he pops huge here, then he'll have the freedom to do something like that, and he'll go back there to pick that up, and then I'll be super happy about that. And
That would be cool. Yeah.
so what's coming up for you? I know that you still got to promote. No Tears in Hell is out now. You can get it. You can buy it at Amazon. Now, is it going to be coming out for hard copy for people like me who collect physical media? Are we getting the physical media
Yeah,
release out of it?
I was told at least the DVD. I don't know the specifics of when that's supposed to happen, but I was told at least the DVD. I don't know about Blu-ray. Unfortunately, that's out of my control. One is probably more expensive to print than the other.
But you know what it is? Director's commentary is in your control. We do want a director's commentary.
That's interesting. You brought up an interesting point. Okay, let me talk to those guys. That actually would be cool. I've never done one of that, so that'd be.
Yeah, I love to hear. I think I would love to hear you do. I'd love to hear you do a director's commentary. That would be badass.
So yeah, for starters, No Tears in Hell. Go rent or buy it on all the major streaming platforms, especially Amazon. I'm really pushing Amazon. If you can go rent or buy that, if you buy it and or rent it, please like take a second. It's not the easiest thing to navigate, but go. You can't do it on your TV. You have to go on your phone or website. Leave a review. The more reviews we get, like I said, it just helps the algorithms. And the biggest thing is like for independent filmmakers, which is basically everybody that's not a studio thing, the lower tier, lower budget movies, this is how you can support that, even if it's not your cup of tea, so to speak. But if you're in the horror community, which is like the best community, hands down, without a doubt, very rabid fan base and very loving fan base, this is how you can promote that. So we can get more, especially now, I'll just be 100% honest, the state of the industry is like really tough. There's less work, less independent films. So the more we can help support, and even if it's not my film, go watch another independent film, whatever, go leave a review on Amazon, push, anything. You see something like Patrick, like I always say, Patrick, one of my things I love about you is you're a big fan and a big advocate for independent film, which is huge for the community. So I appreciate that. Start with that. Go watch Second Chances. Go watch Purgatory. Both are available on Tubi. Purgatory season 1's on Amazon Prime, but both seasons are on Tubi. I'm also in post right now with a film that I just shot with Clay and Gav, and Gabby's on that one as well, called Rough Draft, and that's a Jeff Fahey, Mina Savari, Lachlan Monroe film that we just finished.
Lachlan Monroe. Yeah. I'm going to be chasing you after that to get an interview with Lachlan because he's like one of my heroes.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy, and I think you're gonna really particularly love this project, Patrick. I think you are. I mean, we had a lot of fun filming it, and I'm in post now, and we're doing like the VFX stuff, and producers on that project, George, Marcus, Brent, and Johnny, put together like a dynamic team. They've got this phenomenal post house called Sugar in Hollywood. Juju and his team. I'm just like, my expectations for post. Paul is our editor on this project. Amazing, and also Hunter's Moon, Alexander, who did our composing for Hunter's Moon, is coming back for Rough Draft to do our music for that film. So I'm excited. I'm working with Alex again for the first time in years. So that collectively, and Jeff Fahey and Mina are just so good in the film. And then Gabby.
Jeff Fahey, he's amazing. I've been watching Jeff Fahey for a long time now. I've been a big fan of his. There's other fans I know. My friend Eric, he's a huge Jeff Fahey fan. Of course, we all love Mina Savari. I mean, who the hell can, she was like, she was really, really sweet in American Pie.
Yeah,
Just like I love her character in that movie so much. And she's worked very hard, and she's still out there kicking ass. And like
he's great.
Lachlan Monroe, like I said, I mean he's great. I enjoy watching him tremendously. I'm excited for Rough Draft. Rough Draft sounds really, really, really exciting. And coming on the heels of No Tears in Hell, that's a hell of a one-two punch for any filmmaker.
I'm excited. I mean, like I said, I think the biggest thing during this happened during No Tears too. At some point when you're filming something, and I hadn't really experienced this, but like you just kind of realize you got something. So when we were filming No Tears, I was like, you know what, this is not it's not speculative. Like I know that this is going to be a really great film. And when we were doing Rough Draft, I felt it even more so because the one thing that Rough Draft has that No Tears doesn't is it's a more marketable film. It's not as edgy, obviously.
Right,
It's a little bit more. It's got a wider audience, right? But
right,
that's
right,
all the more reason for people to go watch No Tears and support No Tears because all of these things help get to the next level, right? Just for me as a
right.
filmmaker, the people around me, like I said, Gabby has all these great scenes with Lachlan and then with Mina and Jeff. So like it gives me the ability to create these worlds, if you will, from the blank page, and then work with all these great actors that continually to hustle and chase their dreams. The only way I can keep doing that is if people are watching the films, because it is at the end of the day, it's like if my films don't find an audience, if they don't make money, if they don't at least break even for investors and things like that, then eventually the projects are going to stop. So like that's my whole thing where it's like I love talking to you, I love doing these interviews, I love the press, all that stuff. At the end of the day, it's about getting the word out there, and it's one of the things that I respect
Right.
about you immensely, Patrick, is that you've been supporting me back when other people weren't. So that's huge. And so yeah, as I do gravitate up, like those are things that I won't forget. Obviously, I'll continue.
It's amazing how many wonderful people I meet that are connected. I met Gabrielle, but then I didn't, I did the interview with her, and then it wasn't until all of a sudden I realized that she was like, she was a Haley Bennett fan. All of a sudden now I'm starting to talk to her more. We're talking more about Haley Bennett,
Yeah,
and then, it's just, and then it just, works that way. It just builds that way,
yeah,
in connection. Look at the three boys from Death Squad. I got to know them one by one, one from the other, and it's all about that. There's one thing that I was going to ask you. I don't want this to be a downer of an ending, so I'll come up with another happy one. But do you sense that there's pressure building? I mean, I heard that Georgia now, was the big hub now for everybody to go there.
yeah,
Now I'm hearing that Disney Marvel is now moving their whole Marvel production over to the UK.
yeah.
Um, do you? I mean, are is this still a sense of competitiveness over in making films, or do you feel there is a growing desperation?
There's a level of so a lot of this is I'll say above my pay grade in the sense that like at the end of the day, a lot of it becomes financial, right? So things like tax incentives. And one of the reasons that Atlanta was such a big hub for such a long time was, the state of Georgia had such a great tax incentive, and so filmmakers, big and small, would go there. They'd film X amount of dollars, they'd get a percentage back from the state as incentivization to come and spend money in hotels and restaurants and hire local crew and pay taxes into that state. So from a business economical perspective, that makes sense. What ends up happening, and I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole, but like when you have unions like the Screen Actors Guild and IATSE, which is the below the line people, and WGA for writers, and the Directors Guild and the Producers Guild, there's certain guilds and unions, they're there for a reason, to try and keep people from being exploited, and it's the same reason, like before unions happened in this state, in this country, the factories and stuff, people were losing their arms and working 20-hour work days and just being exploited and for big corporations. And then unions came in and kind of said, no, this is going to be this, we're going to stay together, and there's a reason behind it. But there's a tipping point, there's a fine line where sometimes things that are in place to protect the workers sometimes can be counterproductive to the actual work itself. And so I'll use my own personal experience, and this somewhat it answers your question, but I'm going around in the circle because I'm going to use my own personal experience rather than just speculating on the big macro. Let me go a little more. I'll go micro here. So when we were doing like Hunter's Moon, for example, we're in Kentucky. I think we're ready to go, and I'm dealing with the Screen Actors Guild. And what had happened was they give you like a representative, and they're like, this is the guy or girl. They tell you all the papers you have to fill out, all the stuff. This is the requirements. This XYZ. And so the guy that we had got sick and disappeared for weeks, and so they brought in somebody else. And then we were dealing with a woman, and I was dealing with it myself. So I'm the writer, director, and one of the producers. I'm one of the producers. Out of all the producers, I'm the one that's dealing with SAG. And I'm like, no problem. I get all the paperwork, and then this sick guy comes back. We're in Kentucky, ready to film, and he goes, "Oh, yeah, you're missing some paperwork." And I said, "No, the person that was there while you were sick said I had everything." "Well, I'm saying you're missing stuff." And I'm like, "Dude, I got actors coming in on flights to like film in 2 days. Like people were literally getting on flights to come film from LA and all over the country or whatever." So it becomes like this kind of like this weird. I liken it to like when you go to the DMV. Sometimes, depending on who you get at the DMV, there's like a weird power trip thing where it's like, I'm just there to get my license renewed. They treat you like cattle, and they're just sitting there and they think that they're like this powerful person. And it's like, I don't understand it. And then you get the sweetest people. So I'm not trying to stereotype everybody. I'm sure it's the same thing with SAG, but I didn't have my first film, I had a nightmare experience. And I was very open with the actors about this. Like every time I was trying to get something to film, to do a small independent movie, I felt like their guild was like pushing back and making it harder for me to do my job, to the point where I had to ask for that guy's supervisor. And I got the guy on the phone. I said, "Look, I'm trying to make a movie with X amount of SAG actors. They're all going to pay. They all pay their dues. We're going to pay into pension and health and all this stuff that we're required to do. I just feel like this rep that you have is making my job so much harder. We should all be trying to go for the same goal, right? Like this isn't a thing of like us not paying you." Long story short, we finished the movie. We had all these issues with the reshoot, all those things like that. The guild takes what's called they call it a bond. So they're trying to ensure that you're going to pay their actors. So let me be clear. There's a lot of producers that don't pay. They go and they film. They don't pay crew. They don't pay cast. And so what the guilds do is they hold a certain percentage of money from your budget. So if you say, "I'm not going to pay the actors," they go, "All right, well, we'll just pay it out of the bond that we've held from you." So we get to the finish line and post trying to finish Hunter's Moon. And SAG says, like, "We need more money from you for the bond." And I had already sold the movie. I had sold it domestically and foreign, so I knew the money that was coming back. And it was, not at that point, was not very profitable. So it was like, here's the numbers. Like, if we give you more money, I can't finish the film. I can't put it through post. I can't do editing. I can't do sound. I can't do music. So do you want to take more money from me that I don't have, or do you want me to finish the movie and you can just keep the bond, the percentage of the bond, and pay the actors from that? Because you're going to know what the residuals are anyways. So actors, when they do union jobs, every time you rent a movie, every time you buy a movie, every time it screens or whatever, there's a percentage that trickles down, and each of the actors get a residual check every quarter. Same thing for Writers Guild and Directors Guild and things like that. So they held a percentage, and Daniel actually called me like almost a year later after we filmed, and he goes, "Hey, dude, I've got no residuals from SAG from your film." I go, "What?" We had paid SAG ahead of time the residuals, so they held the money. So I call SAG, and they're like, "Oh, you have to give us this like document." I'm like, "Guys, you've had this money for your actors for almost a year, and now it was right around the pandemic. these actors are like dying. They need money. They're wondering why they're not getting residuals. And I paid you the money a year ago. Why are you not giving it to the actors? And you're arguing semantics and things like that. So to get to your long-winded version of your answer to your question, sometimes I think it gets so complicated that people just go, you know what? Let's take it out of the States. Let's go overseas where there's less of this weird watchdog, which again, if a producer's not, let me be clear, if a producer is not paying the cast or crew, that's not cool. And that's why I was so upset with SAG for our film, because we paid, even with like, Thomas, for example, we paid all his fee before he ever even filmed a scene. We put in an escrow over at his agency. So like, and we got yelled at for that. They said, well, why didn't you put it through payroll so we can track it? I'm like, because the agent told us to put it in their escrow. This isn't some no-name actor. Like, this is how they do it. I don't know. Why are you getting mad at me? Like, weird things like that, instead of going, okay, no problem. Next time when you do it, can you do it like this? Instead of educating producers, they just treat us all as if we're criminals.
I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with you, Michael. I've watched the last 2 strikes of SAG. It's honestly, the very top of SAG, the leadership of SAG, it's just as dirty as anything else.
Well, there's reports that there's all this money from those bonds and those residuals and stuff that's just unclean. Like they're sitting on. And if you think about it from an economical standpoint, if you put millions of dollars into a bank account and it just sits there and you don't pay people, it's getting interest, right? So there's almost like a mob mentality to it, where they're just collecting all this money. So our bond, I think, was like $50,000, which was astronomical for the budget that we had. But think of bigger budget movies. They have to put these massive bonds for the, and they're just sitting there and holding it. And sometimes movies take a long time to come out. No Tears in Hell is an example of that. And so they're just sitting there. And so like, it becomes counterproductive. So I think what's happening is tax incentives are being, and to be fair, there's the other side of this, where I think there's some people are taking advantage of these tax credits. Some people that are on the shady side. So I think states are kind of losing. It's not doing what its purpose is supposed to be. So if I film in, like we filmed in Missouri, for example, we go to Missouri, all the hotels, all the food that we eat, all the local crew, all of that stuff is funneling money into the state of Missouri, right? And then every paycheck that we give to a crew member, they're going to pay their tax on the state of Missouri. In the hotel that we pay, there's tax. All that stuff helps the economy. It makes sense, right? But if you're going and you're fudging numbers and you're doing something shady, and again, I don't want to speak for other people, and I don't want to overstep boundaries here. I just think at some point, some people just finally go, enough is enough. I can't work like this. And these are not small. Like you said, Marvel pulled out. The Marvel is not small by any stretch.
No.
I mean, these are people that, think of the amount of jobs that are going out of the country. So it's one of those things. So there is a scarcity, and I think that's part of the problem. And in terms of like, it's one of the reasons that I'm pushing No Tears so much too, is we have to show that independent films still can be, lack of a better way of looking at, profitable. There's about, at the end of the day, nobody wants to invest in something and not make money, right? It doesn't make sense unless it's a complete passion. Right. It's fine. But it's hard for me to go to an investor and say, hey, look, I need $1 million for my next film, or 500,000 or 2 million, whatever the number is. If my films are not making money, why would they do that? It doesn't make any sense. Right. So unless it's a tax write-off, and that's a whole other, we won't go down that thing. So
I think it's the reason why a lot of low-budget horror films now, that's the reason why they have to go through Indiegogos every single time, is because their movies, they can't go the traditional way of finding investors, because the first thing the investors are going to do is you're going to sit there and say, how am I going to get my money back? You're asking me for $1 million or $2 million. Tell me how I'm going to get my money back. Where are you going to be able to, are you going to be able to release it theatrically? Yeah. What kind of publicity do you have? Or how much are you going to spend on promotion? I'm not going to put a single penny into anything unless I get a fighting chance to get my money back. But independent films, they can't do that anymore. Plus, the loss of physical media is a tremendous blow for indie films, because that's one of the main ways of actually making money was physical media. And now that now you hear too many stories about it's only on streaming. Well, streaming doesn't pay for shit. We all know that, and they have all and all of a sudden it's like, so it's a dog eat world. It's a dog eat dog world. It's like, you want me to do this, in order to do this, I got to be able to do this, but I can't do this because you won't let me do this. And so, it's hell.
It's al-
And
also like
I feel,
when you look at it, like when a film is done, there's a distributor and or a sales agent that's selling it, right? So like there's domestic and then there's international too. So like their job, part of it is like how good is the film, right, in terms of execution, and that's something as a filmmaker that I can control. I can control to some extent, obviously. If I make a good movie, that's part of the battle, right? But the first thing that most sales companies and distributor companies are going to say, like, who's the main cast piece, like who's the main actor, and and in the case of No Tears, that's Luke, who has a fan base, and I think his fan base in particular is more international than domestic. But Luke is not like a household name, so it becomes really based more so on the execution of the film, and obviously Luke's performance and the rest of the cast as well. But so it becomes harder to kind of do a film like that, and so that's where, to your point, like back in the day, you know, how many times did you go out into like a Walmart or Target or whatever and find the stuff in the value bin, the DVDs or the Blu-rays and stuff that were on sale for like $2-3? That was where like filmmakers actually made a ton of money. Like you wanted your film to end up in that value bin at some point, because that's where all of like the printed media that was expended out, you make money off of it, and that's where all of a sudden the return on the profit and the ROIs and stuff like that started to come from. So you take that away, you take away all of that stuff, like you said, it's harder and harder just to have the fact that you even have to ask me, like, is No Tears going to have a hard media? Like, that never used to be a question. Like, that was just kind of like, of course, yeah, why would it not have a DVD, or why would it not have a Blu-ray? But now it's like, well, not every film is doing that. They're just doing straight to streaming, and that's because it costs money. It costs money to print, it costs money for marketing. I mean, Hunter's Moon was released right in the middle of the beginning of COVID. All of the marketing went out the window because COVID had just hit. So Hunter's Moon hit like a perfect storm. I thought, oh, people will be home watching the movie, but all the marketing dried up because there was nobody was.
Let's see. Nate Bright just walked through the door. Says, "Hey, yay, Michael! Michael is the best." Thank you. Yeah, thanks for coming in, Nate. Yeah, we agree.
I'm telling you, man, Nate is responsible for all of the severed head, for all of the bloody parts, for all of the beautiful gore from No Tears, and then he joined us on the rough draft as well. So Nate is a genius in his craft.
Nice. Tom Baker wants to know, Michael, he wants to know your opinion about Jason Blum and Blumhouse Productions. Yeah, how do you feel like that? I mean, that's a really interesting question. I guess it's more, I mean, they're it's almost like a machine for them, like a factory. They come out with movies, around $4 to $5 million. They throw them out there, they make the money back real quick. They may make, $15 to $20 million back on the box office, maybe a little bit more, sometimes it's a little bit more. Is it, it's, I, a lot of them are PG-13, which, unless you have a bigger audience, but is it really horror? Well, do you feel it's too much? Do you feel like we're going the opposite way here? Do you feel sometimes studios will just crank out product just to crank it out, just to keep something on, going, feeding the machine like this Netflix or any of the streaming platforms? I mean, the demand from streaming for new movies and series, it's just overwhelming to me. It's like, man, it's like, if you can get your movie, if you can make a movie, and you can probably get, you can probably sell it on the streamers. I just read today that Tubi. I mean, think about this, Tubi. You know how many movies are in their catalog right now?
A ton.
You could go there, and they have 275,000 films, TV shows. That's just absolutely insane. I mean, and then you try to take an original film and drop it in there. It's like dropping someone in the middle of the Pacific with no life jacket.
That's why are you supposed to survive? That's why I keep talking about the algorithms. And we'll get back to Jason Blum in a second. Like, that's why, like, think about No Tears, right? Like, if we're not pushing it on Amazon, if they're not doing reviews, it dropped, right? And then it's just going to disappear into the stratosphere in regards to like all the other countless films that'll go. You're just going to lose track of it. So the likelihood of people stumbling upon it becomes less and less the further you get away from the release date, right? So that is a challenge. And Second Chances is doing really well on Tubi. I think part of that is because we've been promoting the crap out of it, but also because there's so many people involved in the production from the 3 seasons in terms of actors, cast, crew, things like that. All of them started to watch it all at the same time, telling all their friends, and so there's a massive influx of people watching these 3 seasons all at the same time. From, you got to think of the cast members for 3 seasons worth of a show. There's a lot of people there so involved, so I think that's a lot to it. But going back to Jason Blum, I think he's provided an avenue for a lot of great filmmakers. I think their formula has changed a little bit. I know I've heard that they're trying to get into stuff that's not just horror now, but also, for a while there, they were purchasing kind of distressed properties where it's like a filmmaker will have a film that's like okay, or it's missing something or needs reshoots or whatever, so they'll purchase that or they'll get the rights to it, and then they'll pay for the reshoots, and then they'll kind of like use that, and then they'll release it, obviously. And so they did that, I think, with a lot of films, and I think that's how they kind of started to branch out and get their library, if you will. But then they've done some bigger films. I think they were involved in the Saw franchise towards the latter parts of Saw. I think they're part of that.
Yeah, they just made a deal with them.
Yeah, as a horror fan, I mean, it's hard for me to ever think anything other than positive for anybody who gives outlets to filmmakers that are making horror, because like I said, I've said it earlier today, like the horror community is the greatest community in my opinion in terms of films, because it's like this built-in audience of people that are they just love the genre. There's no other genre like that at all.
No.
Not even
horror films made over $1 billion this year.
Yeah,
$1 billion. Yeah. The new Conjuring movie opened up to the third biggest opening in any horror movie. Over $80 million. That's just, and the thing about it is, what's really funny about that is that they pushed that movie back almost a damn year. At the time, they pushed it back, the release time, and it's like, that's never a good sign. And never, when you get pushed back, that's never a good sign. But then all of a sudden, no, but people are really hungry for the series. And so here it is, middle of September, and they're dropping, you're not even October, but September, you're dropping a movie, and lo and behold, it just blew up. I tell you what, I have kept you here way past our point. So I am going to go ahead and end that on Jason on Blumhouse, but we're going to have you come back for sure when Rough Draft is getting closer to completion. I can't wait for that. That's going to be exciting, and so happy for you. Thanks. What a tremendous cast that is going forward. I also am thinking about the other project that we can't speak about. Crossing my fingers for that. That would be very exciting as well. Things are looking up. Hard work is paying off for you. I'm so happy because you're one of the good guys in this business, and you deserve all the success that you're going to get. And by all means, if you hear from me and the Cheetah to watch No Tears in Hell, get your ass over there to Amazon, buy a copy digitally, or you could be like me. I'm gonna have to hold off and wait for it on DVD, but that's okay because I'll have a physical release with a director's commentary on it.
Here we go.
I'm just speaking that in the power.
Yes, I love it.
I just want to say thank you again, Michael. I want to thank our chat. Thank you so much, Nate. I'll probably be picking I'll probably be coming for you, Nate, pretty soon to have you come over and hang out with us and talk about you and your craft. I would really like to speak to. I'm always looking forward to meeting makeup artists, special effects artists. They're a lot of fun. Real quick before we go, I'll let you know tomorrow at 4 p.m. At 4 p.m., we'll be speaking with actress Erin Michelle Soto at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 o'clock Pacific. She is gorgeous. She's a very nice young lady, and I can't wait to talk to her tomorrow. And then this Saturday on the 13th, we're watching The Hole. I'll be joined by our good friend Mary Wilson from the ISC Midnights, and Joe Dante directed The Hole. And did I mention that Haley Bennett was in it? I didn't? Well, she is. All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow, 4 o'clock. Thanks so much. And Michael, you stay right there for 1 minute. I'm going to say goodnight to the chat. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Oh, that was fun.